cops. You can't do that here. Go! Get out of there! Get out of here! Get out of here with that camera!
Hi, my name's Ian. I'm from artpolitic.com, and I'm here with my wife, Megan, and Andrew from Roberto Productions.
Hey.
Who is upside down. And Candace from Roberto Productions. And we just saw the movie Exit Through the Gift Shop, which is a movie that is mostly about a French filmmaker named Terry, who is traveling around with a bunch of really popular graffiti artists, mostly, you know, street artists, and ends up kind of getting into it himself, but also it's kind of like about his hunt for the elusive Banksy. And yeah, so what do you guys think about the film experts?
It's a very good film. It's a very guerrilla style shot. I think it's cool. It's very like organic. Like it's just obviously some guy who doesn't really know what he's doing. He's kind of like, he just throws himself into everything without fear or insecurity about his ability to do anything well. He just says, I'm just gonna do it, who cares? He doesn't like let people judge him. And it's cool because it shows a lot. His curiosity and his energy allows him to do some things that people probably wouldn't be allowed to do in general, like taping these graffiti artists and all these, you know, like Banksy and Shepard Fairey. They kind of like felt this guy's energy and his innocence and his like just curiosity and positivity toward what they're doing. So they allowed him to like go and watch him, you know, watch them, you know, put up all of their work. And obviously it was like a very treacherous, you know, and scary thing to do for them on their own. But to have a camera there is even a little more because you have the chance of exposure. But his guilelessness, is that a real word? His lack of guile. Okay. I think a lot of people to trust him.
Like the blank faces.
Yeah.
We're like,
But the weird thing is this guy is seriously an idiot savant, like man-child, who's just kind of like ends up doing really cool things because of his like just gregariousness. But it's weird because as this guy's life changes and he gets more involved on a personal level with that kind of work, it's strange how the movie, just the perspective of the movie and the artist who have been talking about this guy the whole movie, like, wow, he's such a cool, you know, kind of like silly guy. It becomes more of a threatened feel. Like the whole demeanor of the movie seemed to change. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
it was almost like, it was weird to me. It was kind of like this negative, almost, threatened attitude.
That's when he became an artist.
Yeah.
I think that's when he realized what he wanted to do, which was basically bite off of everyone else and do his own thing. I mean, he already had a successful business. He already had the finances to do that. So he's like, all right, well, you know, I see what these guys are doing. This is easy. I could just hire some people to produce my ideas and have them, you know, have them do it for me. You know, put on an art show and be successful, and people ate it up.
Do you think that? Oh, good.
No, go ahead.
Do you think that? To me, it showed how it's kind of like his foreignness allowed him to see the insecurity in Americans in regards to fashion and art. The way he played his customers, he says, "Oh, I get all these cheap clothes, and then I say something designer, and they'll pay $300 for it." And he was able to just zero in on the way certain, like, I don't know if it's just America, but people will fall for something out of like some fear of not knowing what art is. You know, he knew he could manipulate that and, you know, make money off of it.
Well, yeah, they're suckers.
Yeah.
I mean, every single person that was a sucker. You know, he made so much money off of just basically the simplest things. I mean, some of the ideas were really brilliant. You know, he had some really good ideas, but they were all reproductions of you know, what his friends were doing.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, it's almost like he was showing anyone can do this. And I think in a way, it was almost like the one guy says in the movie, you know, You know, I don't know if this was a joke. He didn't really. I mean, they kind of say that this is a joke. Was he playing like it's this whole thing? Like when they were doing that whole part where he was spray painting "Life is Beautiful" on the brick, brick wall.
Because he's using really crappy spray paint to do that. I mean, it's not even made for putting like it's a top spraying can. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, but it was still. I think the idea and the location of the art, I thought that was pretty cool. But it really, in a sense, kind of almost felt like it maybe cheapened it for those other more established artists, and they were kind of like, wait a minute, this guy who has no background other than he'd been following us around. Now he's totally successful by emulating, like you were saying, emulating everything they had done. And in some ways, probably made more money quicker than both of them. And who knows? I mean, I don't know how much money Banksy makes or whatever. I know he sells a lot of stuff, but he made what, $1 million in like a week? Or
those
something?
guys, those original artists, Banksy, Shepard Fairey, even Space Invader, like those guys are known as the originals. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of like, okay, I went and followed you around. He's like the next generation. He's taking their ideas and...
Originals don't always make money. It's the same thing with like
movies
and music world, same thing. Like the Ramones, they didn't make all the money that people have followed them later, but yeah.
Well, and it's like reproductions of, all of a sudden, like, here's a resurgence of this art that everybody has access to, but I mean, he's really smart. He's a smart businessman. I mean, he worked in a reseller's shop. So he knew how to price crap.
Do you ever think about how they all of a sudden got very pious about their work? When before, Shepard Fairey was like, his whole thing was like showing how people project and how they project on something that meant nothing to him and how that turned into power. And it basically, to me, it seemed like he had kind of the same thing. It's kind of like, obviously he didn't realize he was doing it, but all of his work was just vacancy that people projected all this meaning onto. The French guy's stuff. Yeah, and it's kind of like
Terry.
They all got very pious all of a sudden, like he has no idea what art is, blah 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 blah. It's like, didn't she reject that whole line of thought years before? Yeah. And all of a sudden it's kind of like they're just turning into the same things as ours.
Anyway, I think Candace is on the right track when she was saying that his like foreign attitude, being able to be on the outside of it, really played an important role for him. Like, he's this French man who comes to America and then uses cheap, ridiculous clothing to brainwash people into thinking that it's designer. And then he sees these people who explain their art to him in a way that they're saying, the street art, like, we're brainwashing people, like Shepard Fairey's brainwashing people to think that obey has some sort of meaning. And he like continues this thought of brainwashing the masses, and it's just basically like a played out story of fanboy turned into success. It's like, I'm gonna follow you and learn everything that I possibly can from you, and you're just gonna think that I'm this simple man who's really into you, and I think you're so cool, you're the coolest guy, you're the only person in the whole world that I want to meet, like Banksy, he's the top, he's everything, and Banksy gets all, like, I trusted him, I brought him into my house because he thinks he's this guy who worships him, when really he's this guy who's playing him, trying to learn everything that he can, so that he can make a bunch of money off of it, and then he has the little switch of, well, Banksy told me to do it. Yeah. So he can use it against him, like, I learned everything from you and then you told me to go create my own art, so you created me.
He knew that he wasn't supposed to do a show that big, basically. I mean, what they're talking about was like, like he didn't get his chops on the streets type of thing. I mean, that seems to be like the argument that the artists were using against him. But basically, I mean, it was like he was using bits and pieces of what he learned from everybody. I mean, the best thing that you could do is get yourself out there as much as possible, and he went big right from the get-go.
That's what commercialization is, and that's what their whole art is about, commercialization of everything, and that's what he did. He commercialized their mockery of that system, and isn't that, like, very, I don't know,
it's fair.
meta?
It's fair. Why not?